He was once the king of illusion, walking on water, levitating over buildings, escaping from impossible traps. Criss Angel wasn't just a magician. He was a global phenomenon who blurred the line between reality and the supernatural. At the height of his fame, he had the world watching, jaws dropped, hearts racing. But then he vanished, not in a puff of smoke or with a dramatic curtain drop, but from the spotlight entirely. No more headlines, no more primetime stunts, no more Criss. What happened? Was it burnout, scandal, or something much darker hiding beneath the theatrics? As the cheers faded and the lights dimmed, a far more twisted story began to unfold. One filled with personal struggles, bizarre accusations, and whispers of a disturbing past that no one saw coming. If you thought his greatest trick was escaping a locked tank underwater, wait until you see how he disappeared from fame. This is why you don't see Criss Angel anymore. Criss Angel's origin story, from family tragedy to Mindfreak fame. Before he walked on water in Las Vegas, before he levitated above the Luxor Hotel or shattered records on national TV, there was just a kid named Criss. Not Criss Angel, the world-famous illusionist, but Christopher Nicholas Sarantakos, a quiet, curious boy growing up in a modest Greek-American household in East Meadow, New York. His story isn't just about flashy illusions or death-defying stunts. It's about obsession, heartbreak, and the power of believing in the impossible. Criss was born on December 19, 1967, the middle of three sons raised by John and Dimitra Sarantakos. His father, John, was a hard-working restaurant owner who ran a donut shop by day and, by all accounts, never missed a moment to be present for his kids. "I had an amazing childhood, lots of love," Criss later recalled. "But my dad worked his tail off, getting up at 4 in the morning and going off at 5, 6 o'clock, yet he always had time to spend with his kids and his wife." Their home was filled with love, tradition, and a relentless work ethic. But Criss's imagination was always somewhere else, in a world where the impossible felt just within reach. At 6 years old, Criss had a life-changing moment when his Aunt Stella showed him a simple card trick. It wasn't anything extravagant, but to him, it cracked open a portal to another realm. That single trick ignited a lifelong obsession. From then on, he wasn't just interested in magic, he was consumed by it. By age 7, he was performing homemade shows for his family, using nothing more than enthusiasm, makeshift props, and an ever-growing sense of wonder. While other kids played outside, Criss was holed up in his room, watching VHS tapes of magic legends, studying books on illusion, and practicing until his hands ached. School never quite held his attention, but his magic studies were rigorous. He treated every sleight of hand, every escape, like a sacred ritual. At East Meadow High, he kept a low profile, often more focused on practicing illusions than paying attention in class. But the dedication paid off. At 12, he earned $10 performing at a local birthday party. For most kids, that would have been a fun anecdote. For Criss, it was a revelation. He could make a living doing what he loved. Through his teens, he chased every opportunity. Birthday parties, local diners, backyard gigs, nightclubs, anywhere with a stage or a set of eyes. Audiences were drawn to him, not just for the tricks, but for the energy, the intensity, the mystery. He wasn't just doing magic, he was commanding attention. Slowly but surely, the kid from East Meadow became a name you couldn't ignore. But just as his local stardom began to blossom, tragedy came crashing in. His father, the man who had been his biggest supporter, was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Doctors gave John 3 weeks to live, but he defied them, surviving for over 3 years. Throughout it all, Criss stayed by his side. He was a firm believer that the mind controlled the body. Criss later said, "The body was a slave to the mind." Watching his father fight that battle became a defining chapter in his life. Then came the day that would change him forever. Criss was holding his father's hand when he passed away in 1998. "When my father died in my arms," he recalled, "it had such a profound effect on me that at that very moment, I realized I needed to face my own fears." And that's exactly what he did. He began pushing himself further than ever, physically, emotionally, spiritually. To overcome his fear of needles, he suspended himself from a helicopter by fishhooks through his skin. For Criss, these stunts weren't just spectacle. They were tributes. Every death-defying act was fueled by the pain of losing his dad and the fire to honor his memory. From that point on, Criss Angel wasn't performing just to impress people. He was on a mission to make the impossible believable, to prove that with enough passion and persistence, pain could be transformed into power. In his book, Mindfreak: Secret Revelations, he dedicates a chapter to his father, calling him the glue that held their family together. It's clear, everything Criss became, every illusion, every escape, every moment of spectacle, was born from a place of deep love and even deeper loss. But behind the rock star image, the black eyeliner, the motorcycles, the bombastic pyrotechnics, was still that same determined boy practicing tricks in his childhood bedroom. His work became his therapy. "One of the most gratifying things I get as an artist," he once said, "is when people watch me do these demonstrations and in some way feel empowered so they can confront their own fears." That's the real magic he offered: hope, courage, transformation. Criss Angel's journey isn't just the rise of a magician. It's the evolution of a son who turned grief into greatness, who took heartbreak and built a career that defied logic, gravity, and expectations. His story is proof that real magic doesn't come from props or smoke machines. It comes from belief. Belief in yourself, belief in your dreams, and belief that even the darkest moments can lead to light. Because sometimes, the greatest illusion of all is making the impossible look easy. Criss Angel's rise, from struggling magician to magic legend.
It took work beyond work since I was 6 years old to get here. It's not an easy road. It's a very, very difficult road.
Like many artists driven by passion, Criss faced an uphill battle filled with countless rejections, financial struggles, and the grind of performing in small, sometimes overlooked venues. On top of that, he juggled multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Yet, giving up was never part of his vocabulary. Fueled by an unshakable belief in his own abilities and a fierce determination to revolutionize the world of magic, Criss pushed forward with relentless tenacity. Reflecting on those early days, he said, "It's so funny looking back, but my so-called overnight success actually took 15 years. I remember when I didn't have any money, and my only car was Mom's Hyundai." That candid reflection perfectly sums up the perseverance that laid the foundation for his success. Criss's fascination with magic was sparked at a tender age. "I became immediately obsessed with magic. That's all I could think about, and that's all I wanted to do, so it started at a very young age," he recalled. This early spark set the course for what would become a lifelong obsession and career. Inspired by legendary magicians like Harry Houdini, Criss didn't aspire to merely replicate their acts. He aimed to reimagine and reinvent the art of magic for a new generation. In his own words, "I stayed away from magicians when I was younger, because I didn't want to think like them and wanted to create my own style." This desire to break from tradition led him to develop a performance style that was as much about spectacle and storytelling as it was about illusions. What made Criss truly stand out was his bold fusion of magic with rock music, gripping narrative, and elements of genuine danger. He wasn't content with the classic magic show format. He wanted his performances to feel like high-energy concerts or theatrical productions. This innovative approach kept audiences on the edge of their seats and set him apart in a crowded field. Adding another layer to his persona, Criss was also a talented musician. In 1995, he formed the band Angel Dust, which blended heavy metal's intensity with the mystique of magical illusions. Their debut album, Musical Conjurings from the World of Illusions, dropped in 1998 and served as a testament to his unique ability to meld music and magic. "For me, music and magic weren't separate," he once explained. This synthesis of his two passions gave him a distinctive edge and allowed him to captivate audiences who craved something fresh and daring. By his early 20s, Criss took a pivotal step. He moved to New York City, the pulsating heart of America's entertainment world. The city's vibrant arts scene offered far greater opportunities and a larger stage on which to build his career. He performed relentlessly in clubs, theaters, and private events, steadily gaining momentum. During the mid-1990s, Criss was performing at the legendary Madison Square Garden as part of the World of Illusion Conference, astonishingly delivering up to 60 shows in a single day. This intense schedule reflected not only his remarkable stamina, but also his unwavering dedication to honing his craft. Despite the rapid pace and increasing spotlight, Criss remained deeply grounded by his family ties. His mother, Dimitra, was a constant source of support and encouragement. She was often in the front row of his shows, cheering him on, and even helping to manage the complex business side of his burgeoning career. "My mom was there for every show, every setback, and every success," Criss shared. This close-knit family foundation provided him with emotional stability and motivation through the highs and lows of his journey. Criss's story is ultimately one of grit, innovation, and the enduring power of family support. A tale of a dreamer who refused to follow the beaten path and instead rewrote the rules of magic. His early years were marked by relentless practice, fearless creativity, and a desire to connect with audiences in an entirely new way. As his career blossomed, Criss would go on to become a global icon who transformed modern magic into a spectacle that blends illusion with rockstar energy and theatrical flair. But it all began with a young boy in Hempstead, enchanted by a simple card trick, and fueled by years of sweat, sacrifice, and an unyielding vision. His journey teaches us that success rarely comes overnight. It is built on passion, perseverance, and the courage to be different. Criss Angel's rise from struggling performer to worldwide sensation stands as a powerful reminder that when talent meets tenacity, the impossible can become reality. Criss Angel's Mindfreak, the magic show that redefined illusions and danger. When Mindfreak first burst onto the scene on July 20th, 2005, it wasn't just another magic show. It was a full-on spectacle that shook up the world of illusions and redefined what magic on television could be. Criss Angel didn't just want to amaze audiences. He wanted to blow their minds with daring stunts, jaw-dropping illusions, and a rock concert energy that made every episode feel like an adrenaline rush. Right from the start, Mindfreak was unlike anything audiences had seen. It blended street magic and close-up sleight of hand with massive, large-scale stunts that often put Criss himself in serious danger. This wasn't just about pulling rabbits out of hats or simple card tricks. Criss Angel was pushing the limits, hanging off helicopters by hooks through his skin, levitating between skyscrapers in Las Vegas, and walking on water. These feats were as thrilling as they were dangerous, and that edge-of-your-seat tension became the show's signature. But where did it all begin? Criss Angel's rise to fame didn't happen overnight. By the early 2000s, he had already built a reputation in the magic community as an innovative performer with a relentless work ethic. His style was a bold mix of classic magic, rock music vibes, drama, and genuine danger. This fusion made him stand out from traditional magicians, who often stuck to more conventional acts. And that unique flair caught the attention of the A&E network, who gave him the platform to bring his vision to a wider audience. The first season of Mindfreak featured 15 episodes, each packed with illusions that tested the boundaries of what people believed was possible. One of the standout moments was the infamous body suspension stunt. Yes, Criss actually hung from a helicopter by hooks pierced through his skin. It's the kind of daring act that makes you cringe and cheer at the same time. Another unforgettable trick was the levitation between two buildings, a stunt that seemed to defy gravity itself. These moments instantly turned Mindfreak into a must-watch show, earning a dedicated fan base and lots of buzz. As the series went on, Criss Angel didn't slow down. If anything, he ramped up the intensity. Seasons that followed brought even more elaborate and dangerous feats. Imagine walking on water, being run over by a steamroller while lying on broken glass, or escaping from a cement block underwater. Each new stunt was bigger and bolder than the last, capturing the imaginations of viewers and cementing Criss's place as one of the most daring magicians ever. But it wasn't just about the wow factor. Mindfreak was praised for its creativity and high production quality. Criss's magnetic personality, part fearless daredevil, part rock star magician, made every episode entertaining. The show didn't just inspire viewers. It inspired a whole new generation of magicians, many of whom credit Criss Angel with helping popularize magic in a modern, edgy way. Of course, this level of risk came at a price. Criss's body took a beating over the years. He suffered everything from cuts and bruises to serious injuries that needed medical attention. The pressure to constantly outdo himself and push the boundaries must have been intense, both physically and mentally. And that toll wasn't lost on him. On top of the physical demands, Criss also faced criticism within the magic community. Some traditional magicians argued that his sensational style detracted from the true artistry of magic, accusing him of focusing more on shock value than on skill. But Criss stood firm. He believed that evolving magic meant taking risks and breaking molds. His mission was to bring magic to a broader audience and redefine what it could look like. And by all accounts, he succeeded. Over 6 seasons and 96 episodes, Mindfreak not only entertained millions, but also earned numerous awards and accolades. It became a landmark show that proved magic could be fresh, exciting, and downright thrilling. For fans, it wasn't just a TV show. It was an experience, a ride into the unknown guided by a magician who wasn't afraid to flirt with danger. In the end, Criss Angel's Mindfreak is more than just a collection of stunts and illusions. It's a story of creativity, passion, and pushing limits. It's about taking an ancient art form and injecting it with the energy of rock and roll, the drama of reality TV, and the spectacle of a live concert. It's a reminder that magic isn't just about tricks. It's about inspiring wonder, challenging belief, and sometimes putting your body on the line to do something unforgettable. So next time you think about magic, don't just picture card tricks and rabbits. Think about hanging from a helicopter by hooks through your skin. Think about levitating between buildings. Think about a show that dared to change the game, and a magician who wasn't afraid to risk it all to amaze the world. The untold story of Criss Angel's life after Mindfreak. After 6 jaw-dropping seasons that redefined street magic and turned illusions into primetime entertainment, Criss Angel's Mindfreak came to an end in 2010. It wasn't canceled. There was no dramatic fallout with the network. The decision came straight from Criss himself. After years of living on the edge, literally suspended in straitjackets, submerged in water tanks, or buried alive, he knew it was time to hit pause. The grueling schedule, the constant physical and mental strain, and the need to evolve creatively pushed him to close one chapter in order to open another. And that next chapter was nothing short of ambitious. Criss had his sights set on the stage. Not just any stage, but the bright lights of Las Vegas. His new project, a live show called Believe, launched in partnership with Cirque du Soleil at the legendary Luxor Hotel and Casino. The idea was bold. Merge Criss Angel's high-octane, mind-bending illusions with Cirque's world-renowned acrobatics and theatrical storytelling. On paper, it sounded like a match made in entertainment heaven. But when Believe premiered in 2008, the reaction was far from magical. Critics were harsh. The audience were confused. The show, for all its glitz and ambition, just didn't land the way Criss had hoped. But if there's one thing Criss Angel doesn't do, it's to give up. He wasn't about to let his Vegas dream vanish. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves, took full creative control of the production, and completely reimagined it. In 2013, Believe was reborn as Mindfreak Live, and this time the audience was spellbound. Packed with the illusions that made Criss a household name, and infused with new jaw-dropping stunts designed exclusively for the stage, Mindfreak Live became a smash hit. Night after night, Criss packed the house, leaving crowds gasping, applauding, and wondering how he pulled it off. It wasn't just a show, it was a full-blown spectacle, electrified by Criss's charisma and backed by a team that shared his vision. But while his career was dazzling brighter than ever under the Vegas lights, behind the scenes, Criss Angel's world was beginning to unravel in the most heartbreaking way imaginable. In 2015, Criss received the devastating news that no parent is ever prepared for. His son, Johnny Christopher, just 20 months old, had been diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a fast-moving and aggressive form of cancer.
Cells that appear, and that's what happened the first time he went into remission. It was about a year, and then I noticed his testicle was swollen, and that's one of the signs. Cancer in boys hides either in a testicle or in the head. So we're just very aware of that.
Suddenly, all the accolades, the flashing lights, the roaring applause, it all faded into the background. His priorities shifted instantly. The magician who had escaped from locked coffins and levitated above the Luxor was now facing the most terrifying challenge of his life: watching his child battle a deadly disease. Criss dropped everything. He stepped away from performances, appearances, and obligations to be by Johnny's side. Day in and day out, he sat in hospital rooms, held his son's hand during chemotherapy sessions, and did everything he could to shield Johnny from pain while carrying an unimaginable burden himself. In interviews, Criss described this period as the darkest, most soul-crushing chapter of his life, filled with fear, exhaustion, and emotional turmoil. Despite his financial success, the emotional and financial toll of his son's illness was overwhelming. But true to his nature, Criss found a way to turn anguish into action. Instead of retreating from the public eye completely, he used his platform to speak out, loudly and passionately, about pediatric cancer. He was stunned to learn how underfunded and overlooked childhood cancer research was, and he couldn't stay silent. Criss launched the Help Foundation, short for Heal Every Life Possible, dedicated to supporting families going through the same nightmare and to raising funds for groundbreaking research. He didn't just write checks. Criss put his heart and energy into organizing major fundraising events, like the Help for Hope Telethon, which brought together celebrities, magicians, musicians, and fans for one mission: to save lives. He incorporated emotional segments into his shows, telling Johnny's story, shining a spotlight on the harsh realities faced by thousands of families, and giving a voice to the voiceless. Audiences saw a different side of Criss. Still a showman, yes, but also a devoted father and a fierce advocate. The man who once made himself disappear now made sure the struggles of sick children everywhere were seen. Through this journey, Criss Angel proved that his greatest trick wasn't escaping death or defying gravity. It was channeling unimaginable pain into compassion and purpose. He used his fame not just to entertain, but to uplift, to fight, and to make a difference. Mindfreak may have ended in 2010, but its spirit lives on, not just on the Vegas stage, but in every life Criss Angel has touched through his advocacy. He reinvented himself not only as a magician, but as a symbol of resilience and unwavering love. And in the end, it turns out that the most powerful magic isn't what happens on stage. It's what happens when the spotlight fades and the real fight begins. The unbreakable spirit of Criss Angel. They say magic is all about illusion, but for Criss Angel, it became something far more profound. It became his armor, his therapy, and his way to process the unimaginable. While most magicians might pull rabbits out of hats or make coins disappear, Criss was channeling heartbreak into hypnotic performances. Behind every death-defying stunt and every gasping audience was a father pushing through pain, a man turning personal tragedy into creative fire. When Criss's young son Johnny Christopher was diagnosed with leukemia, everything changed. The carefree dazzle of the stage suddenly collided with the harsh lights of hospital rooms and chemotherapy sessions. But instead of retreating from the public eye, Criss doubled down. He didn't just keep performing, he evolved. He reinvented his entire show, giving it more heart, more edge, more emotion. His revamped Mindfreak at Planet Hollywood wasn't just a collection of illusions. It was a manifestation of his inner battle. It pulsed with renewed vigor, rich with symbolism and soul. Even as he faced the crushing weight of his son's illness, Criss kept creating. He didn't just stay dedicated to his craft, he elevated it. He pushed himself to develop new illusions that weren't just tricks of the eye, but expressions of raw, lived experience. That kind of resilience didn't go unnoticed. Fans felt it, peers respected it. Because Criss wasn't just fighting for applause anymore. He was fighting for hope. He often spoke candidly about how Johnny's illness reshaped him. He described how his son's courage in the face of fear inspired him to be stronger than he ever thought possible. Every performance became more than just entertainment. It became a form of catharsis. Audiences weren't just watching a magician, they were witnessing a man using magic to cope, to heal, to hold on to a sense of normalcy in a world that had been turned upside down. And the love poured in. People from all over the world sent messages of support, donated to pediatric cancer research, and offered encouragement during Criss's darkest moments. The outpouring of support became a lifeline for his family. Criss often credited that community with giving him the strength to keep going, to keep creating, keep performing, and keep fighting for his son. Then there was a glimmer of good news. Johnny's condition began to improve. Periods of remission brought cautious relief and flickers of joy. But the journey is far from over. Criss remains vigilant, not just as a father, but as a vocal advocate for pediatric cancer research. He continues to share updates, offering a beacon of hope to families going through similar battles. His platform became more than just a stage. It became a tool for awareness and change. Now, while Criss's personal story is deeply moving, let's not forget the mystique that made him famous in the first place. From the beginning, Criss Angel wasn't interested in being just another magician. He built a brand, a persona that fused rock star swagger with gothic enigma. Dressed in black, eyes framed in dark eyeliner, dripping with brooding intensity, Criss turned magic into theater. He didn't just perform illusions. He made people feel like they were peering into another dimension. With performances so extreme and surreal, it's no surprise that rumors began to fly. Was Criss really just a magician? Or was he dabbling in something darker? Fans and skeptics alike started whispering about the occult, about supernatural powers, even about satanic pacts. His stylized A logo sparked debate online, with some interpreting it as a nod to the Antichrist. And Criss didn't shy away from the rumors. In fact, he leaned into the mystery. His shows were drenched in gothic and occult imagery, adding fuel to the fire and keeping the audience guessing. But behind the smoke and mirrors, Criss always made one thing clear. It's all illusion. In interviews, he's emphasized that every mind-bending trick and jaw-dropping stunt is the product of tireless practice, brilliant engineering, and sheer dedication. He's not summoning demons. He's working harder than anyone else in the room. The dark persona, just part of the show. But the talent, that's 100% real. And perhaps that's the most powerful magic of all. The ability to inspire, to captivate, and to make people believe in something extraordinary. Criss Angel isn't just a man performing tricks on stage. He's a father who turned pain into power, an artist who transformed loss into legend, and a performer who blurred the line between illusion and reality. He's proof that even in the darkest moments, there's room for wonder. So whether you think his power comes from years of discipline or something more mysterious, one thing is certain. Criss Angel is unforgettable. And as long as he's breathing, he'll keep performing. Not just for the crowd, but for the ones he loves most. If you enjoy diving into the incredible story behind Criss Angel's magic and resilience, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an inspiring story like this. Drop a like if you're amazed by his journey, and share your thoughts in the comments below about what's your favorite Criss Angel moment. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more captivating tales right here.